Reports actually have indicated that the government might actually sold its own land to a private investor. So we shall keep you up to speed about that. We shall be crossing over to listen in to what the Cabinet Secretary has to say in regards to this. Meanwhile, Interior Cabinet Secretary Mr. Fred Matiang'i actually appeared before the Senate ad hoc committee probing the Solai Dam saga, which left about 47 people dead. Now, quite a lot of questions have been coming from that particular Senate Select Committee, which recommended, amongst other things, for the firing of the entire leadership of the security county officials in Nakuru County. We're also looking at the fact that the Cabinet Secretary earlier today, we shall listen in, he said that he will be reacting to that particular report in about 30 days. Meanwhile, the Mao question, a lot of sentiments coming from this in regards to the relocation of those who have settled around the Mao forest. Now, Jubilee seems to be divided over the Mao evictions. However, through its Secretary General, Mr. Raphael Tuju, he says the evictions will continue as part of government's agenda. This is despite sentiments coming from Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. We shall listen into that in a bit. And of course, on matters sports, Gor Mahia made headlines yesterday, winning the 85th Mashimage Derby. We saw that yesterday, courtesy of Sport Pesa. We should keep you up to speed on these and other stories. Remember, you can always get in touch with us. Our Twitter handle is at K24TV. The hashtag is The Daily Brief. And before we begin on matters the Mao Forest, let me just introduce my guest this morning, speaking to Justice Juma, who's the Justice and Freedom Party of Kenya party leader. We also have current and political affairs analyst Michael Agwanda, advocate of the High Court, Denny Okato, as well as security and political analyst Dennis Ntumbi. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time and, of course, joining us this morning as well. Now, the eviction exercise that is currently ongoing in the Mao complex continues to elicit anger and blame, with now the government insisting that the restoration exercise will proceed. Jubilee Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju dismissed claims by Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen that the eviction exercise is inhumane. Now, Victor Law with the latest report about the row on one of the biggest water towers in the country.
In the past 1 week, Mao Forest and the exercise to evict residents living close to it has been a pain in the flesh for some of the leaders in Rift Valley. And on Sunday, Jubilee, through its party Secretary General Raphael Tuju, spoke publicly about its stance on the matter.
But somebody from the legislature, even if he's the leader of majority in the legislature, in the Senate, his position, if it's at variance with the position of the executive, the position of the executive automatically prevails, and his position becomes a private opinion.
Just 2 days ago, Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen made utterances that was seen to be going against the party position, even accusing the government of brutality and being inhuman by forcing residents out of the forest.
Wamama watoto yao wanakufa wakati wanajifungua. Tell me, how is that against Jubilee policy? Kama mimi nimekuja hapa kusema hiyo ni mbaya, hiyo ikakuja kwa aje mbaya against Jubilee?
When you talk about an individual politician going out there and talking at variance with the executive position that we have on that area, those are his opinions.
Tuju dismissed reports that the evictions were initiated by ODM leader Raila Odinga, but stated that the Deputy President William Ruto gave orders for the people to move out.
The Deputy President has not contradicted those agencies. He has not contradicted the Ministry of Environment. The Deputy President has not contradicted the KFS or any of those agencies which form the multi-sectoral role.
Some Western Kenya legislators have also supported the eviction exercise, but urged the authorities to ensure the process is done humanely.
Let's not go backwards and start introducing politics in this matter. Let's look at the human aspect. If I was the president, I'll give an executive order to hold that, to stop that exercise first, so that the people who are living in Mao can be scrutinized, centers can be done, so that we find legitimate people, and then where they are going to be moved should be established.
Leaders have also called on their colleagues to stop politicizing the matter and seek alternatives that will save hundreds of people who have been affected by the evictions.
Mtu anataka sasa atumie siasa ati ni msitu tunatoa watu. And you go beyond the cut line. Sababu serikali imeweka mpaka, ikasema ni mpaka hapa. Kwa nini mnavuka mpaka ya msitu kuingia kwa mashamba ya watu wenye wako na title deeds, kuwatoa kwa manyumba yao?
Huyo nataka nimweleze Murkomen, wale watu ambao wako kule Rift Valley na wameingia ndani ya forest, tenganisha siasa na mambo ya kiteknolojia. Mambo yale ya kiufundi tofautisha sana. Mazingira ni mambo muhimu ambayo lazima izingatiwe.
There are more than 12,000 households estimated to be in the forest, and the government is adamant that it will continue amid controversies surrounding the biggest water catchment area in Kenya. It now remains to be seen if the forest will once again determine the future of the region's politics. Victor Low, K24.
And that is what starts us off, even as we continue to follow developing a story. It's quite a lot of concern about the Mau Forest. Now, you do remember that this is not exactly the first time that the Mau Forest is making headlines, but the intention has always been to conserve that particular water catchment area. Michael, let me start with you. Recent, sentiments about the Mau Forest. What is your take on this?
Yeah, the Mau Forest issue, and more so to be very specific, the eviction is not something that has just emerged out of nowhere. There's a history to this. This land has been invaded by people that have crossed the line between the forest and where people are supposed to settle. This did not happen yesterday. It did not happen during Uhuru's time. It actually happened during Moi's time. It happened during President Kibaki's time, and it has happened. There are some people that have even now moved during President Kenyatta's time. However, when you look at the plan that the government has had, knowing very well that this is our biggest water catchment basin, there's been a strategy to relocate these people out of the Mau. The question that everybody has asked is, where did these people come from that went to the Mau Forest? We need to know what happened and why people move into the Mau Forest. People move into the Mau Forest because politicians and well-connected land barons hived a huge chunk of Mau Forest, over 20,000 acres. Some of them built factories in them. There's a tea factory in Mau Forest. Some of them were doing logging and anti-logging in that very, very forest. And these people knew that the best way to get into Mau and to legitimize their title deeds in future will be to have people who will come in as settlers. Yes. Once they are in there, and if the government sees mercy on them, that where do we take these people? They're already here. Let's leave them here. Let me just finish this. Then they will come in and say, look, this is part of my land, and it's 10,000 acres belonging to politician A, to an investor B, and to a factory E, or even to company A. Now, that is why these people moved there. They were encouraged and they were incited by the local leaders to move in there. What has been the government wish and will? That Mau settlers move out so that we can plant more trees and that the forest can remain as it is, as the biggest water catchment area.
And if according to you, and perhaps details you've seen suggest that they're there illegally, then what about the compensation question?
You see, what everybody is saying is these people came from somewhere. These people did not come from nowhere. That is one thing you have to know. And wherever they came from, they know where they came from. Nobody in this country does not have a home or a place that they can say, this is my home.
Let me hear from Justice.
Mau Forest actually is one of the country's largest forest reserve. It's around 400 hectares. And Mau borders and it serves so many counties. It's bordering Bomet, bordering Narok, bordering Kericho. And then Mau has been the source, actually, that is supplying water to Lake Victoria region, and leave alone the rivers. Lake Victoria region is a White Nile, as a source of the Nile. And then the rivers that run from Mau area into Lake Victoria, into Lake Turkana, into Lake Natron, all of them are emanating from where? From Mau. So Mau is a serious water catchment area that I think was gazetted around 1930, where it was declared a national reserve and a forest that to date, Ian, actually should be governed by the Forestry Association. There is a service that is in charge of the forest. And the challenge, I think, that we're talking about the dwellers of the same area, because the persons who have occupied the forest, the indigenous dwellers of the forest were Ogie community. And Ogie communities, these were individuals who were just gatherers and hunters. And the government came to, I think in consideration, there's some suggestions that had been made that we allow the Ogieks to do what? Continue living as we train them to let them manage what? Help us manage and conserve this forest. However, with their hunting and lately, of course, they become pastoralists and the massive grazing, which actually now is depleting the catchment areas, is becoming a disaster. And then I think, again, the other challenge that was, I think, introduced in 1986 by the former president, Daniel Arap Moi, where they introduced the T-zone to mark at the buffer, to act as the cut line, so that no one was to encroach past the T-zones, as again also led to other individuals. I think that's where it's coming from, whether they are cartels or who are further, because we've lost. So
how should this be addressed, Justice? I just need to cross over somewhere, just quickly.
Yes, to render solution to Mau, yes, we need to readdress those individuals, the individuals who encroached through this tea farming. In Kiambu, we had an alternative where people were told you can farm within the forest. And after they farmed within the forest, they thought tea was not a solution. Okay. They uprooted their teas. Okay. And in result, they started, the entire forest was left what? Bare. And these are the things that are now proceeding with the incoming or bringing in of the tea zone planters.
Okay. Thank you, Justice.
Who have encroached further, just to finish, who have encroached further, and their encroachment actually has attracted now other private settlers or private landowners.
People to take advantage of
who are now corrupting even the officials who should be taking care and...
Sorry to interrupt you. I'll come to you, Denning and Dennis, but let's cross over to yet something that is also making headlines in regards to the Ruaraka land saga. Like I'd mentioned to you, Education Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed is appearing before the Senate committee, which has been probing the Ruaraka land saga. Let's listen into her defense and what exactly she has to say about that.
I mean, I wouldn't have paid for land whose acreage I wasn't sure about. So that's my own personal opinion. And I think that all of us know that if you are acquiring even your own private property, that you would have 3 or 4 valuations done to just make sure that you're getting for money. And I think that is something that any of us would do. So it's not it's not a secret. Process that's ongoing right now by the Ministry of Interior. The entire piece of land, right? Not just the one that these 2 schools occupy, but the entire piece of land. So we're also what the outcome of that would be. There's a live judicial process that's ongoing right now by the NLC, and it's on the interpretation of this whole matter. Right? So that's also something that we are aware of, and I have my legal officer here who would be willing to actually comment on that. We actually are following this very, very closely because we want to settle this ownership tussle. Yeah? We don't think we have all the information that we require because this issue has been ongoing for 30 years. Right? So we're collecting all the information that we think is relevant to this issue so that we can once and for all, right, as a ministry, resolve this ownership tussle that's ongoing. For me, obviously, what was a little bit, of concern was that this is an issue that has been ongoing for that length. Should have been taken to ensure that if any payments were made, right, based on that had taken place since the school was started in the 80s. Yeah. Look, I don't think I can actually say right now. Our first priority is to ensure that we collect all the information that we need so that we can unravel ownership tussle. And Honourable Chair, I think that I wouldn't be able to say any more than that.
I wanted to clarify my question. Yes, because we have a governor who we are dealing with after this, so we need to make sure we close this. Yes. Will it be a question rather than a statement? Chair, it's just a question.
Chair.
Let's deal with Senator Matani. Yeah. Maybe a minute, and then. And the CS has responded. You know, the summary just I sought to get from you, and which you would be probably kind enough to put on record clearly, is it is evidence in response to the question that I've asked that if this transaction was brought, you don't believe that it meets the threshold of a transaction that should have been okayed and money is paid. That is the answer. Is that right? Yes, yes.
Yeah, Honourable Chair, Honourable I think that's speculative. On the compulsory acquisition of school property, I would obviously due diligence, and I can tell you for sure on the ground to collect this information, but I would rely.
Yes, that's what I say. Please share with your indulgence, because I understand the difficulty you're in, but we must establish the facts for facts. And what I said is, in answer and response to the question that I posed, if this with all the same prevailing conditions, that you would not approve it because it is your view that it should not and does not meet the threshold of a transaction that should have been paid by government under the circumstances and the same conditions.
At the very least, I would have budgeted for it before making the payments, because then you would have it would not just be the Ministry of Education that would have due diligence, but all the other agencies that are involved in budget making. So at the very least, I think I would make sure that it was properly budgeted for.
Let's remember one thing, that we are dealing with a career diplomat, so her choice of English will be very careful. And this man is a... And you know how they run their affairs there, from Babayao to... So there could be a difference in style, but the message has...
But I also sympathize with the CS, because we'll almost better to indict a colleague of ours by such line of questioning.
Yeah. So, but from her background, and we will make our conclusions. We cannot force her to put it in the same language that we use in our day-to-day politics. So, Senator Manga.
Chair, you seem to be...
Professor Manga, then.
To the CS. Having come to the office and already the transaction had taken place, 1.5 billion had been paid to the claimant. Then, with the letter of the PS to the chairman of National Lands Commission to ask for the title, the whatever for the land, and the National Land Commission has never communicated up to date. What have you done? Because already the government has paid 50%. Have you followed up from there since January as a CS now, as the new substantive CS to the ministry?
Senator Olekina,
I hope the CS is noting down the questions, because, you know, the way we're asking these questions, and I hope that, Chair, next time, this is a matter of national interest that requires a lot of time for us to be able to converse on all these matters and really get CS noting, but I just want to also for you to note that this is a matter that requires a lot of time. Yes, I'll be very sympathetic to you, and I hope that you can be able to do things a little bit differently. Because based on your information, you reckon that things would have been done differently if proper due diligence would have been followed. In terms of your follow-up, I'd like to bring you to the attention of Wafula, which was done, I think, 2 weeks after the payment had been done. I'd like you to go back and look into it, because there are serious issues that the report highlighted and also gave recommendation follow-up. It is not enough that you've commissioned a task force to look into a matter and also to come and say this matter is being investigated by a lot of people and not do anything as a current CS. So I hope that you can be able to commit to this committee, and more so to the people of Kenya and the people of Nairobi, whose money is being used to be able to pay for a transaction which they believe that it's a public utility or it's a public asset. So I would request that for you to be able to give you more details. And finally, I just want to close by making, when a committee is looking into a matter, we are limited in time. We cannot drag on this matter over and over and over. And to be fair to you, CS, we've invited you severally to come before us. And this is maybe you finally honored the 5th request. I hope that in future you can be able to come so that we can dispense of these matters, table the report. This committee is dealing with matters to do with finances that date back in 2013 of such laxity. So I'd like to request you that in future, when we call you to come, please try to respond immediately so that we can deal with this matter. We don't bite. We just look into facts that have been brought before us. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. You have reaffirmed what we said at the beginning. CS, you can deal with Professor always has the last word.
Thank you.
You have been inspired now to speak.
No, I thought I would speak after him. Not worthy of the title of professor. Let me just make my...
You're 10 years away from it. You'll be there. Thank you.
I want to thank you for the commitment that we'll be able to get this report within 3 months. I want to ask, to make it easier, if you can ask, if you can let on an appeal, even today because you're on camera or later, to all the school boards in Nairobi with issues, to give you that information within a week or two. I know Muthaiga Road Primary School is under contention with the club where older people want to play, but the children are losing their playing ground. The current primary school where I went to, you will soon get a claim of 4.8 billion. That school back. And there are many other cases. So if you make that claim and all these school boards of public schools come to you, in less than 2 weeks, you'll have all the information. I would be glad to be represented as representatives of the people, can then go through bit by bit. Because Roraka is just one incident. Aga Khan alone is 4.8 billion. There are many others across the city. Maybe you can make that appeal.
Professor?
Yes, CS Ambassador Mina, for being very candid. When you retire, to look at a raft of measures that you're going to take, will I request you to studiously look at this letter and recommendation of from the Quality Assurance and Standards Investigative Report of 3rd February 2017, and if you turn fine, I'm not complicating your situation, that it will help you to find out what eventually you want to do. If you look at the actual particular report on 201, on the
We shall cross over there to listen into more defenses by the Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, in explaining the role of the Education Ministry, specifically in the purchase, or rather in the ownership of Ruraka High School as well as drive-in primary school. And of course the question here is on the land which these two schools actually have been built upon, and the debate on its ownership. We'll keep you up to speed on that. Still following on matters Mao evictions, let's listen in to a press conference by one Mr. Joshua Kutunyi addressing the very same issue. And then, of course, my panel will be reacting to the sentiments that are coming to us as we continue to follow this story. Let's now listen in.
Of 4.8 billion, and then terminated in grounds that it could not cover the extended scope of excisable goods. Then KRA initiated a tender number KRA HQDP 423 2014-2015 EGMS 3, a direct procurement involving negotiation with the same tenderer to bid, and was awarded the first two tenders. The documents are here. I'm going to leave with the press. It is also important to note that legal notice number 164, which was issued by Commissioner General Jiraini on July 2nd, 2018, will push prices of fruit juices and vegetable juices from 10 shillings per litre to 10 shillings 50 cents starting 1st August, on top of 1 shilling 50 cents for the stamps. The notice will also push up water and non-alcoholic beverages from Kenya shillings 5 shillings to 5 shillings 20 cents, further burdening the taxpayers. This is against Article 43 of the Constitution that guarantees every Kenyan access to clean water and safe water, among others. I am aware that the court stopped KRA from implementing the project, but KRA appealed. Understand the matter is now at the Supreme Court. We are aware that the National Assembly Public Investment Committee, PIC, investigated on the matter.
We do apologize for that. Joshua Kutunyi is speaking on other issues and not the Mao eviction process. Let me actually just get to hear from Denning and Dennis here. And of course, you can speak about the Ruraka land saga, which also remains a mystery. Just last week, we saw one Francis Mburu who claims to have been paid, or rather, he said to have been paid about 1.5 billion shillings, as he says he is a rightful owner. And of course, the Senate committee is investigating whether the possibilities as to whether the government actually bought its own land. Dennis.
First of all, thank you very much, Ian, and good morning, viewers. I think I'd like to center on matters Mao, and it's unfortunate to see the political class politicizing what I call life. And of course, this is a matter that, as my colleagues have said, it's been an extensive interest both politically, and it's very important for us to kick the politics out of where Kenyans are concerned, where our water towers are concerned. We're already in a very grave place when it comes to water issues in this country. And Mr. Ian, the judgment was already settled on this all the way back in 2009. Is when there was, the cabinet sat and discussed this matter extensively. And I believe there was a task force that was appointed on this issue around the Mao Forest. And the recommendations that the cabinet came through were 20 recommendations thereabout. So what we need to go back is actually look at, on matters conservation, on Mao, which is what they were discussing about, and the preservation of Mao. And there were 20 recommendations that were issued. And of course, this is a matter that pitted then the cabinet secretary, the Minister of Agriculture, which was our DP Ruto, and then the PM, who was, Mr. Raila Odinga. And this was discussed extensively. And 20 recommendations were issued by the cabinet then. What we need to go back is look at those 20 recommendations, look at the enforcement and where we dropped the ball. And the recommendations are very critical, and they touch on compensation. They touch on the fact that we need to reclaim 20,000 hectares. The fact that almost about 4,000 hectares were, exercised out. But the fact is that we need to go back and look at that report and follow it up one by one. There's nothing else that we need to do. This is a matter that has been discussed, closed. What has happened is that it's been politicized and not enforced. We actually don't need to get creative on this.
And I think the bigger issue here right now then seems to be the manner in which the government is doing this exercise, and that has been.
But when we talk about the government, we talk about the government needs to enforce the 20 recommendations that were there. You know, if you look at the recommendation number one, what needs to be done is that there has to be a stoppage in terms of who encroached on the land. Those that were considered to be bona fide, if you look at one, the government says that identify funds for purchase of land for resettlement or compensation of all bona fide settlers in the complex. But then if you look at another, one of the critical things that need to be done is remove over 2,500 households that have encroached into the forest, affecting 29,000 hectares of government forest. The other recommendation is stop with immediate effect the allocation of any forest land. The other one is reclaim back approximately 4,000 hectares that were exercised in 2001 but have not been settled, and revert the land back to government forest reserves. We have 20 recommendations in place. The government is enforcing
all they need to do is just to enforce
the likes of Kipchumba Murkomen, he wants to be a village hero, but he's a national disgrace. This is a water catchment area. The matter has been discussed extensively all the way from when the problem came in. The government has a right to enforce and reclaim back forest land. For the sake of this nation, we depend on that water. Our water has been poisoned. There's been encroachment and encroachment. So let the likes of Kipchumba Murkomen not politicize a matter of grave national concern and educate the residents of Meo, because one of the recommendations that Cabinet gave was civic education, to educate the residents of what needs to be done.
Let me hear from Denning before we take a short commercial break on this.
Well,
describing the process as inhumane. Perhaps for Kipchumba, it might be the manner in which government is doing this particular exercise here.
Well, okay, for me, I think what Kipchumba is doing is trying to propagate a fallacy, and this is a fallacy of pity, whereby you want the people who are on the ground to really think that you are the hero, whereas in real sense, this is something that it's important for the whole country. But for me, I think where this problem starts, it's about the ignorance of the law, because when you look at the provisions of Chapter 5 of the Constitution, which mandates each and every person to take care of the biodiversity to ensure that the environment is protected. And of course, also we have the provisions on public land. Forest area and water catchment areas are public land. And if you see people claiming that this is their land, that they own this land, I mean, this is a loss of the requirement to understand what the law provides for. And indeed, what the government is doing is rightfully so, because we have to protect these water catchment areas. Otherwise, we will not have any water bodies in this country. And the aspect of politicians coming in and trying to put in an aspect of pretending that the government is trying to hurt human rights, I think the way Dennis puts it, Kipchumba Murkomen is doing a very bad job in that regard. He needs to come out very clearly and tell these people that this land belongs to the government. If at all we had cut lines, as they are putting it, let them really state clearly where the cut lines were, because definitely over the years, these people have entered and encroached into the forest. And the way Agwanda was putting it, you see, politicians came in and told these people to move in. And of course, they knew very well, in law we have the provision of something we call prescription, whereby you can go to court and state that I've lived in this land continuously without being disturbed for 20 years or adverse possession.
Thank you, Denning. We're taking a short commercial break, Dennis. I'll come back to you as soon as we're back. And of course, we're following quite a number of stories, including the fact that Education Secretary, Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed has appeared before the Senate committee, which is probing matters Rwaka land saga. We shall keep you up to speed on that. We'll be right back.